Hi, Brandon.
Hello.
I think we can wait 4 minutes because I don't expect anybody else will join.
I kind of lost our momentum over here. But it was good that we canceled last week because I wasn't going to be able to make it.
Cool. Yeah, last week there was container days in Hamburg. So, yeah. Hi, Vanessa.
Using the picture of the office is a pro Slack move or a pro Zoom move because people see it and think that it's you're really there. I did that one time. Someone was like, I thought you were there the whole time and you just didn't blink.
Marcine, are you in a bathroom? What is that?
That's a good question. I'm not in the bathroom.
It looks like
No, it's just my father in the past he had some company that was producing noodles. Yes, I'm son of
noodles.
king of noodles. So uh, the room is free. It's actually quite big. So I decided to move there because I'm living in my family house. It's still under construction, I would say. So yeah, it looks like a bathroom, but it's not a bathroom.
What happened to your pet plant? Did you leave him behind?
Yes, I left it behind because I don't know. It's my wife's turn to take care of that.
Oh, your plant misses you, but maybe your plant likes your wife better. It's like, oh, finally Marcine is gone. I'll be
Probably,
watered. I'll be watered.
probably. We don't have
Vanessa,
much to. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask Vanessa if you've got a tiara on today.
If I've got what?
A tiara on the headband.
Oh, yeah, it's like a sparkly headband. I got some of them and I really like things that are sparkly, which sounds really dumb, but I like them because they make me feel pretty. And I'm not someone that knows how to feel pretty, but I like wearing sparkles.
It made me think it was a tiara. I was thinking back to Big Bang episodes. If you've ever seen any of them, they're pretty funny.
Um, I've seen I don't think I've seen episodes with a tiara. Is there? I will look into that and probably feel foolish afterwards for wearing it, but
No, it's a good thing.
yeah, I figure like if I drop dead tomorrow, I will not regret, feeling pretty today. Yeah, I've been gone a long time. We had a huge study where I was basically running experiments for like weeks and I didn't sleep for weeks and still coming out of that, but I'm back.
Cool, nice. So I guess we can start. We have 3 items in the agenda. First, I wanted to talk about this prefer field for image selection. This experimental platform prefer field that you open under Rec client. So we were discussing this already a few times, and I was comparing this to the compatibility idea that you have a new field compatibilities in the image spec, and you are relying on the ordering of platform features and then platform compatibilities, and relying in a matter that if you put more details into platform features and platform compatibilities, your manifest will be promoted higher in the list. So after thinking about that and about this prefer field, I thought to implement your idea, Brandon, with these weights, but also add the other mechanism, like relying on the ordering still. So, for example, if you have manifest A with OS architecture and variant, and you have manifest B with the same OS architecture and variant, and you still put some stuff, some items into prefer, field, then this manifest B should be promoted higher. And if you would like to rely on weights, that would be alternative to you. Because after speaking to people about this idea, they often would like to avoid putting some weights manually into manifests, into the whole configuration. That's a burden for sysadmins if they don't have some they would like to have more intuitive solution for putting some details into manifests.
Can
Yeah,
you
the
share
weight-
that link quickly, so I could quickly take
Yeah.
a look? And I kind of have the same sentiment about weights. Not just that it's sort of an administrative annoyance to have to add them, but that I guess they have meaning within one particular set, but it's kind of subjective between them. And then what happens when within the set they change, you have to update them? Like it seems like it would get very hairy very quickly.
Yeah, the weights don't go into the manifest. They're in the configuration of the container engine itself.
Yes.
And they are a kind of a stopgap in case you had something that said, I've got a container image that is got a WASI that's got this certain compression layer that's got all this other stuff in there, and you match these 4 or 5 different things that you're looking for. You're like, that's great. That was the one thing I was looking for. And then there's this one other field that just says, oh, this other entry in here just runs on this fancy new GPU. And it's only one entry in there. You're like, well, that's even better. But it's only one field there that's matching versus the 3 fields in the other one that matched. And so how do you pick between the two? Well, normally you just count them up, but there's this kind of stopgap in there where you can say, look, on this machine here, if you see the GPU that's leveraged, use it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It covers some sets of corner cases, but it would be also good to have some backward compatibility with this ordering stuff, and also still relying on this order. If you have as much details you put into manifest, they are more promoted in the list higher. And if you like to switch to weights, it's also okay. Maybe I made mistake with these weights putting into manifest. My thoughts were wrong in there, but I meant the configuration itself that you have to put by default. People would like to avoid putting some additional information on the configuration side.
So for the ordering, I'm curious where you're thinking of going with the ordering, because we've got the limit in OCI that you always need to put the most generic backward compatible thing first.
Yes. So for instance, if people specify OS architecture and they don't put variants, and but if let me share my screen maybe with Draw.io would be better. I hope you can see that right now. So yeah, we have OS architecture and variant, right? And we have here this new field prefer, which is a map string. So with ordering, I mean exactly something like that. And you have manifest that has the same, basically the same OS architecture and variant, and you still feel something like that in here. This manifest B will be promoted higher than the manifest A. This is A, this is B. And even if you have C, which is the same as well, sorry, but the amount is, let's say you have here, limit, where to 5, this one would be higher in the rank as well. And for instance, if people have situation, I don't know, something like that, that they specify prefer and they don't specify variant, but here there is specific set, it's like under, I'm saying that we keep the backward compatibility. Like if you put, for example, weight 1 here, that should be the other way around, 4, 3, and 2 and 1. So you have to specify OS architecture variant and some additional thing. It will be promoted, but how if you miss one of the most important fields, this prefer field will not make such a big difference, I would say.
Yeah, that's the case it is now. If you don't match exactly on the
Yeah.
OS architecture and all the variants,
Yeah.
nothing else matters. That one is completely excluded from your search list. So the
Yes.
only ones you're going to look at within the list are the ones that have the OS architecture and variant that match your local system.
Yes. And then you would rely how many entries you have in the prefer.
By default, it's a count of how many, because the default weight
Yeah.
would just be 1 for everything. And then if
Mhm.
someone on their local environment says, look, that's not good enough for my environment, I need something more than just a count. I need to weigh these things differently because GPU is more important than the file system compression tooling.
Yes.
They can do that.
In that case, they would rely on your mechanism of putting weights into configuration, but as a default behavior, you would rely on the order.
So
Can I ask some dumb questions when you're done with the current thread, just to kind of catch up?
yeah, I want to be sure I'm understanding, because you said rely on the order there, and I'm like, the order doesn't matter. If you don't match the OS architecture and variant, you're not part of the list. You're out of the list.
Yes.
Completely excluded. And so order doesn't matter at all. Weight doesn't matter at all at that point.
Yeah.
It's just a complete exclusion.
Exactly. So in order to consider any mechanism for more granular image selection, you have to have match for OS architecture and variant. Once you have this, you can put additional fields into account, like prefer. So let's assume we have maybe all of those match. They are the same OS architecture and variant for 3 manifests. And then we put into account how many entries you have in the prefer. If you have let's say number of prefer entries in the prefer 9, it will be the highest promoted in the list, and there will be container runtime then will check if entries in there match what is there on the host or so. But if this is not good enough, because of reasons you said, because I require GPU more, you have alternative to set weights. So either you rely without configuration on the order, or you put weights into account.
And just to be clear, it's not a number of entries in the map. It is a number of matching entries to the host.
Yes.
Whatever the host has.
Yes.
Okay. Vanessa had the question, Mom.
Okay, I have lots of dumb questions because I just haven't been around for like a month or more than that. Okay, so first of all, you're implementing this in Reg client as sort of a prototype or a test.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing in the PR is that you have different attributes from platform. So, platform and architecture, and then prefer has what look like annotations.
I couldn't use the annotation field directly because annotation is already in the descriptor. And so
it would be some other thing for the compatibility metadata.
Yeah, I renamed what I was doing from just setting an annotation to setting it in this prefer field because I wanted to be able to be passed around with the platform object.
Okay, so the idea is that me as the user, I would use your tool and I would say like, okay, this is my, well, so the first set of things are probably gonna be matched to where I need to pull it. So if I'm on an ARM machine, it's not going to give me the Windows choices, for example. But then what I prefer is that data that I provide as the person that's using Reg client, or does that come from somewhere else? Like what's the entire flow of interacting with this prototype?
Yeah, there's at least directly in Reg client, I was playing around with comma delimited fields on the platform matching parameter. And so if you say, do a Reg client, give me the manifest for this image with this platform, the platform would be Linux / ARM64 / whatever the variant V8, comma, and then some prefer strings in there. I was experimenting with that. So it'll be part of the query. The user says, give me the thing that matches this platform.
Gotcha. So if this idea is extended to sort of more automated tools, it's just the automated tools that would give those preferences to a similar client to make the selection of which image they want. like something in
And-
Kubernetes, which we don't have to decide what that is right now, but that's like the high level idea.
In like container D, it would be a configuration file in container D that says, here are your local preferences for this environment. If you ever see these fields, prefer those over the other ones by default.
And then override on the command line because you change your mind for like this one specific thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have in mind like experiments or some way? So let's say that you come to a hardened implementation of this. What is going to be the means by which you prove that this is a viable path and you show it to other tool maintainers and be like, this is a good idea. Let's try it out here. Here's my evidence to show that this is a good idea.
I feel like we need an example with like build kit and container D going end to end would be a good thing. So it means forking both those projects and implementing both of those. So I don't have time to do that right now. And so it's well off in the distance.
Yeah. Have you or Marcin, have you thought about Kubernetes use case?
No, on the Kubernetes level, I didn't think about that. I mean, I was thinking mostly about how container runtime picks images in the matter. So
It
yeah, but
should apply on top since Kubernetes is running container D is, within the, was it CRI? So there is a container D CRI out there and they would just get it that way.
yeah.
Yeah. I think this is cool. And it's like that step between like us like talking for months and months about like specs that like isn't real and like actual implementation stuff. I can definitely see how this would fit into HPC because I would have my prefers with like, well, this system has this kind of MPI. Not to say that the containers would actually have that in the registry, but that's a separate problem.
So what do you think about these two ideas? Like if we combine this ordering, if I explain that, I hope
Yeah,
clearly enough.
I'm not sure where our differences are because everything you've described so far, I feel like that's what I was already doing. So I'm trying to understand where you're
Okay.
coming at it from a different direction.
Because I thought you mostly want to rely on the weights, and if you don't specify the weights, you just ignore that in the prefer.
The weights are all default to 1. And so everything just has a default of 1 weight. And if you have 3 matches, you have a weight of 3 of those 3 matches.
Then it's even better because we are on the same page. It looks like I missed some details in there. That's okay.
Okay.
But I was playing around that with container this. I will continue, but that brings me to the second topic, which is image compatibility prototype under NFD, because I opened this stuff. I know it's mostly this discussion should be under NFD project, but I wanted to talk about the next steps because right now we are working on this proposal under NFD. I spoke to Marcus and Eduardo, and they were kind of welcoming the idea of using the labels, putting this into artifact and validating nodes and use it for other purposes as well. But this is only for Kubernetes, and we need to think more outside of Kubernetes as well from telco perspective. So
You
I'm
mean there's
thinking here,
something other than Kubernetes? I don't know
yeah.
what you're talking about, Marcin. Everything is Kubernetes. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so that's the thing. This is mostly a question, I guess, to you, Brandon. How do you see that? I mean, if we prove this is something useful under Kubernetes, and we want to take this out of Kubernetes NFD or something like that, do you think we can get back with this to OCI, or should we try to, I don't know, make NFD project globally available for other orchestrators, not only Kubernetes?
So what other orchestrators are you thinking about?
Basically, not only OpenStack is running containers, we have some distributions in there. So think mostly about OpenStack. And there are other orchestrators. I know with OpenNebula there were some attempts to run containers in there as well, and at some sites. And with telco, this is the problem. They are running so many different orchestrators there, and they are switching slowly to Kubernetes, but they still running like lots of sites with different orchestrators, and possibly they will stay with them as well. So there is a kind of requirement for standard of this compatibility, not only for Kubernetes. NFD will cover only Kubernetes perspective, but it would be good to have something better as well for something that will come up after Kubernetes. So yeah.
So I know you didn't ask me this question, but I don't know if that's a question that we can answer right now, because it seems like a lot of stuff that goes into OCI is after many years when there's been like several kind of similar things that need to be standardized. And that's when you bring it into OCI and you have that discussion. And this is different because it's almost like we want to demonstrate that it has utility in one space and then have other communities say like, yeah, I need that too. And then when they say, yeah, I need that too, then that's when you start thinking about, okay, how do we make a common standard so that we don't develop like two different things? Like you're saying OpenStack, but for example, from the HPC community, we would want this given that there are workload managers that support containers kind of natively, like not all of them have like a Singularity or a Podman plugin or that kind of thing. We would want that same kind of ability to do the image selection in the workload manager. So that would be an example. But I don't think there's a good answer to your question right now, because there's not that convincing story that like this has really worked and now this other community wants it and let's figure out how to standardize it so we don't build two things.
Yeah, I'm asking this question because I already got questions to be like that. Like people see we are working with this under NFD, and they heard we were doing some. We tried to bring this under OCI, and they were asking us, why did you fail there? And yeah, I understand your perspective, and it's a good point. Maybe it's too early to talk about that, but that's something to keep in mind, that NFD compatibility stuff, it's probably not the last thing, not the last project we want to implement this, and it might come back in the future to OCI again or any other project.
I'm wondering if it needs to go through OCI to make the jump to all the other projects out there. Like if you see NFD with their artifact is working really well for setting up these images to do your compatibility that you need to do. And then you go to OpenStack and say, hey, NFD works really well over there. How about we add NFD over here? Can they just go straight to NFD?
Yeah, they'll just be like, okay. They're not gonna be like, oh, it needs to go through OCI and 8 years of working groups before we say yes. They're gonna be like, we need it now. Make the PR and we'll review it. Like,
I mean, there's already a group implementing this stuff out there. They can just take and run with it.
That's gonna be a problem, because this is under CNCF sandbox. All of this project, this is a lot of politics in there, and yeah, that's the discussion for later. I was just wondering.
Yeah, there's always these politics, and you just gotta deal with them.
Exactly. So anyway, that brings me to the last agenda item: status of the working group.
Yeah, I will say real quick on your last one there for the NFD stuff. If it gets to the point that you start pushing this over on OpenStack and some of these other groups out there, and they say, yeah, we'll think about it, but we're going to go slightly differently, and we're going to implement a different fork that has, possible incompatibilities, that's when it makes a lot of sense to jump up to OCI and say, look, we've got competing implementations for the same thing. We like to, just re-standardize this and get it back to a single implementation.
Okay, makes sense.
Is that really a truthful state, though? I mean, like, I feel like this true state of the world is the XKCD cartoon. There are like 15 standards. Like, even when you do have a standard, people kind of implement it slightly differently, and you still sort of have 15 different ones. Can you give me an example of one thing out there that is actually one standard that everyone conforms to and there are no exceptions?
So the reason that they went with the runtime spec back in the day with OCI was because there was Docker implementing their runtime with runc, and then Rocket came up with their own project over there. They were doing their own runtime implementation, and so you started getting a little fork there. And then on the image itself, there were starting to be some competing implementations of what an image was. Nobody liked having to implement Docker for all their open stuff, and they wanted to have something that wasn't pinned down to one vendor in there. So they've kind of gone through this process a few times, and that's where a lot of the specs before, and that's why we've also got gaps in our specs right now. Like you don't go straight from the image spec to the runtime spec. There's like this quasi in-between state where we don't define how to build a container with volume mounts and network setups and all that kind of stuff. we've kind of left that all up to the implementations to do, and that's kind of this big raging gap between the two specs.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you have the standard that is like vanilla ice cream, and then the implementations are like French vanilla and natural vanilla, and but it's not that everyone chooses the exact same kind of vanilla. There's this space left open for ambiguity and nuances. So that's kind of what I was getting at. Like if you went on the ice cream aisle of OCI standards, you would not find just one kind of ice cream.
When I look at the conformance spec and the number of ways people have found ways to get around conformance for the distribution spec, yeah, there's a lot of folks out there that want to do a slightly different than what everybody expects to be done.
The biggest issue with this image compatibility standard I see is labels. Everybody wants to describe the same thing with different format, with different labels. And, if we have at least this somewhere, not saying OCI, anywhere that everybody follows, that would be great. Okay. So the last topic is status of the working group, because we are not so active anymore. Mostly right now we are going to work on this image selection. My priority right now is to work with NFD proposal and this artifact stuff, but I still have in my mind this image selection use cases. So I'm wondering, should we keep it as it is, or we should change the status of the working group to something else? And if it's required, I don't know, reactivate that, or because I guess from this pull request from you, Brandon, and from the all other ideas I heard already, we need a new field in the image spec in the platform, which is supposed to be map string, and the discussion will be mostly done, I don't know, probably in containerd and other runtimes how to do it. So I wonder if we need to keep this working group active, or what would be the idea?
I'm fine saying we're on an as-needed basis, semi-paused.
Okay.
Right now, for all the stuff that I need to do, is just too far down the back burner. The weather's too nice. There are too many other projects going on, so this is just not the top priority.
Brandon's like, I got bike rides to go on.
I already did that this morning.
That's actually a very good balance, I think.
Okay, sounds good. So if I have anything, I'll just ping you again on Slack and we can discuss again.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
for
Marcin,
joining.
I can help with implementation stuff, and actually I'd like to so kind of keep me pinged in discussions and that sort of thing.
Sure. If you're interested in this NFD work, I already, opened this work in progress PR. Not saying this is gonna be a final implementation. I'm just doing some fun in there, that's all. And when it comes to containerd, I will just use this OCI playground. I did some stuff under containerd already in there, but the idea is different now, so doesn't matter. Okay, thank you, folks. So talk to you soon and have a good day.
Yeah,
Sounds
you too.
good. Nice to see everyone again.
Good seeing you too.
Bye.